Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. John Brennan essentially has already been indicted based on the indictment of James Comey. James Comey was indicted on one obstruction of justice charge, which nobody was talking about. It was very interesting. And one count of lying under oath, lying to Congress. You'll hear the lie in a second. He tried to circumvent a perjury trap. He did the opposite. He tried to be vague and ambiguous, Comey, and state, well, my testimony is what I told you 20 years ago. It's like, well, that's not going to work. So anyway, that did him no favors. Hit subscribe to my super chat. Your support is so greatly appreciated, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to hear John Brennan in a second. Actually, let's just get to it right now, really quickly. Your super chat is greatly appreciated. All throughout here, you have new evidence pertaining to John Brennan and others lying to Congress. This is the ODNI report from Tulsi Gabbard, declassified documents pointing numerous times to John Brennan lying under oath a number of times. It's right here in the declassified documents. We know that there was not a shred of evidence that pointed to Trump and Russia, or that Russia even wanting Trump. There was never, not even one shred of evidence that Russia wanted Trump. The whole theory was so absurd, and it was created by Clinton, Comey, Brennan, Strzok, or I should say, I don't know if Strzok created it, but it was created by Comey, Clapper, Brennan, and others. And maybe the lower level officials within the Federal Bureau of Investigation just went along with it. Who knows? But check this out. Check this out, ladies and gentlemen. This is huge. This is the basis for the Brennan indictment.
Most of the time believed that Secretary Clinton was going to win the election. And so their efforts to denigrate her were not just to try to diminish her chances of winning, but also to hurt her and for her eventual presidency. But also, it's my assessment that they clearly had a more favorable view toward Mr. Trump, and actions they were taking were trying to increase his prospects, even though I think that they probably felt as though they were not all that great.
Why? Why did they want her, or why did they want him and not her?
I think that's a variety of reasons. One is that there was had been a traditional, I think, animus, certainly between Mr. Putin and Secretary Clinton.
So he's making everything up here. It's complete nonsense. This is just one of the press releases here pertaining to declassified documents. They all point to Brennan and others completely fabricating everything, almost everything. There was no, if in fact Brennan and others were given intelligence stating that Russia didn't care at all, had no ties to Trump, and there was never even a reason to investigate Trump. This is all declassified from Tulsi Gabbard. So he's making up everything that you hear from here on out.
As well as there has not been a good relationship between between Putin and the Clintons over the years. I felt that Secretary Clinton, with some of her actions while she was Secretary of State, led to some of the domestic disturbances inside of Russia. And I think he was more concerned that she was going to be more rigid on certain issues, particularly on human rights and other issues.
So what was Donald Trump going to do for them then? Or was it just that they didn't like Hillary?
No, I think they felt that Mr. Trump, being a bit of an outsider, and that they have in the past had some good relations with businessmen who happened to elevate into positions of government authority, and so felt as though, from a negotiating standpoint, that he might be more amenable to good
relations. What if that's true? One of the questions that I have, and this might be more appropriate for closed session, but if that's true, was there in your review of the evidence, was there more damaging evidence of Secretary Clinton that was not revealed? And if it wasn't revealed, what does that say about the Russian ability to be actually rooting for her to win?
Well, yeah, we can talk about it in close, but as I said, I think that they anticipated that Secretary Clinton was going to win the election. And so I believe that they tried to damage and bloody her before the election, but also I would have anticipated that had she been elected, that their efforts to denigrate her and hurt her would have continued during her presidency. So if they did collect more information about her that they did not release, I think they were probably husbanding it for another day.
Clinton had private servers with top secret intelligence, SAP intelligence on these private servers. What are the chances that everyone, including Russia, every adversary, potentially maybe hacked into those servers? I mean, you'd have to be a complete imbecile not to address the obvious. And even James Comey said, adversaries likely hacked in.
Chairman yields back. Ms. Spear, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Brennan, for your service. I'd like to spend some time talking about the outsized role that the Russian oligarchy plays in terms of supporting the Russian government.
Does it need to be?
Thank you for your service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady yields back. Mr. Quigley, 5 minutes.
Interactions between Russia of the FBI and other U.S. agencies, not CIA, to follow up on that.
Finally, if a U.S. president asked any intel official not to pursue an investigation, would you construe that as obstruction?
I do not have a legal basis to determine what constitutes obstruction of justice.
How would you react if a president asked you not to pursue an investigation?
I have never been asked that, and if I was, I certainly would not. I would not follow such a directive.
Thank you. I yield back.
Jim yields back. Mr. Turner, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brennan, in turning back to the exchange that you had with Mr. Gowdy, you stated, and by the way, I want to also thank you, as others have, for the specificity that you provide to us. These are difficult issues and concepts, different standards, intelligence assessments, evidence.
Most of it is made up. It's nothing, especially when it came to Trump. And, you can look back in the Bush administration with weapons of mass destruction. A lot of it is just fabricated to pursue a political goal. This is not rocket science, but let's continue.
We've got the FBI, the CIA, each of you do different jobs, and your expertise is certainly helpful to us to unwind, as we're dealing with elements of this, what we're looking at and what this means as we try to move forward with an investigation. So you indicated that you saw, when asked about whether or not you'd seen evidence of collusion or collaboration, you said that you saw intelligence that indicated that there had been contacts with individuals with Russians that were of a nature that bore investigation.
So this line of questioning is fantastic from the congressman, and he is actually a top intelligence. He's in the intelligence committee. This congressman, but anyway, this also implicates Brennan. Implicates Brennan in perjury, a perjury trap. Check this out.
You said that those contacts might have been benign, might not have been, but they rose to the level of indicating that they need to be reviewed for their nature and looking into an investigation. Did I characterize that correctly?
Yes, but I don't want to take this out of context. We see contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons all the time. It is when it's in the context that there's something else going on. And so we knew at the time that the Russians were involved in this effort to try to interfere in our election. So with that backdrop and increasing indications that they were involved in that, seeing these types of contacts and interactions.
Perjury. Lying under oath. There was no contacts or interactions between Trump and the Russians that would lead to, that were more egregious or that would lead to any type of investigation. Bill Clinton actually had a meeting with Vladimir Putin at his home outside Moscow, right around the uranium deal. That's according to The Hill. But that's okay. That's not a suspicious contact. That's literally, according to The Hill reporting, and other reporting as well, New York Times, I believe as well. So you had very suspicious donations to the foundation and other things going on around that uranium deal. And yet nobody was investigated. Certainly there was no dossier written. There was literally nothing that Trump ever did to warrant this 10-year obsession from Democrats. It was the brainchild and the creation of bureaucrats, lifelong bureaucrats, who utilized their post to deceive the American public, to create a new Cold War. Because the wonderful liberals and progressives and left-leaning, morally superior people who care so much about feelings have no problem recreating a new Cold War because they lost miserably and they were, completely apoplectic at the Jacob Javits Center in 2016. So they needed a scapegoat. And what better way than to just blame Russia? And so that's what they did. They literally set up and framed Trump, who was an innocent man. He was completely innocent. Let's continue. And anyway, this is all perjury right here. Everything you hear is perjury. Everything here, everything perjury, perjury.
During the same period of time, raised my concern.
Excellent. I appreciate that qualification. But if someone left this hearing today and said that you had indicated that those contacts were evidence of collusion or collaboration, they would be misrepresenting your statements, correct?
They would have misheard my response to the very good questions that were asked of me. I'm trying to be as clear as possible in terms of what I know, what I assess, and what I can say.
So you would say that's a misrepresentation of your statement, yes?
I would say that it was not an accurate portrayal of my statement. Absolutely. Excellent. It was inconsistent with my remarks.
So let me go to the next step. If someone saw what you saw, and only what you saw.
So Brennan literally just said, there was no basis to investigate him, but we did anyway. Check this. This is hilarious. This is absolutely hilarious.
Seeing these types of contacts and interactions during the same period of time raised my concern.
Excellent. I appreciate that qualification. But if someone left this hearing today and said that you had indicated that those contacts were evidence of collusion or collaboration, they would be misrepresenting your statements, correct?
They would have misheard my response to the very good questions that were asked of me. I'm trying to be as clear as possible in terms of what.
He helped start a decade-long obsession where 30% of Democrats still believe a hoax, a complete and utter lie. That is the big lie. It's not, somebody who couldn't speak actually became the most popular candidate of all time. The biggest lie of all time is in American political history is that Trump worked with Russia to defeat Clinton, who had private servers with top secret intelligence on them, and cheated Bernie Sanders, who was probably in on the whole thing. The campaign, just like 2024, was a complete catastrophe. They didn't have a functioning primary. And so he can't even state categorically that what he saw warranted an investigation. He might not even be committing perjury here. This might be the only truthful thing the man says. Check it out again. Check this out again, and I won't interject, but this is unbelievable. The whole thing is nonstop lying with maybe sprinkling of some truth here and there. The truth being that he will not admit that anything he saw warranted an investigation, but his spidey sense, John Brennan's spidey sense, his spidey sense says that something's going on. So let's just fabricate and create some kind of Cold War myth. And oh, by the way, all of this has now been declassified as complete nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. Why would the Russians anyway be afraid of Democrats? They invaded while Biden was in office, and they did everything. They invaded during Bush. They invaded during Obama. They invaded during Biden. There's no major invasion during Trump. But anyway, let's continue.
With individuals, with Russians that were of a nature that bore investigation. You said that those contacts might have been benign, might not have been. but they rose to the level of indicating that they need to be reviewed for their nature and looking into an investigation. Did I characterize that correctly?
Yes, but I don't want to take this out of context. You know, we see contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons all the time. It is when it's in the context that there's something else going on. And so we knew at the time that the Russians were involved in this effort to try to interfere in our election. So with that backdrop and increasing indications that they were involved in that, seeing these types of contacts and interactions during the same period of time raised my concern.
Excellent. I appreciate that qualification. But if someone left this hearing today and said that you had indicated that those contacts were evidence of collusion or collaboration, they would be misrepresenting your statements, correct?
They would have misheard my response to the very good questions that were asked of me. I'm trying to be as clear as possible in terms of what I know, what I assess, and what I can say.
So you would say that's a misrepresentation of your statement, yes?
I would say that we're making everything up, and we have to create, how do we say, an environment of deceit to deceive and trick people into thinking that something might be happening, we just don't know what. So we'll investigate Trump, and we'll investigate everyone around him, try to ruin the lives of everyone around him, including Trump, and then the Mueller probe will find there was not one shred of evidence that pointed to any conspiracy or any interference, but we just don't know at this point. It could be that he was innocent. It could be that he wasn't innocent. We have no clue. We have no clue. If you only knew what I knew, then you would be as smart as me, which is an absurd notion. But anyway, let's continue.
I would say that it was not an accurate portrayal of my statement. Absolutely. Excellent. It was inconsistent with my remarks.
So let me go to the next step. If someone saw what you saw, and only what you saw with respect to those contacts, if they looked at the intelligence that you saw, where you said it might have been benign, might not have been benign, and then they characterize what they saw as having been evidence of collusion or collaboration, they'd be misrepresenting the intelligence, would they not?
I don't know what else they have seen that could corroborate or is correlated.
Only what you saw. They would be misrepresenting the intelligence, correct?
Let me see if I can get out of this. He's asking me if anyone saw what I saw, would they then come to the conclusion that Trump was working with Russia? How do I answer that without committing perjury? Oh, okay. Let me see, because what I saw shows that Trump was innocent, but I need to make a statement that the New York Times and the Washington Post could misconstrue as possibly, and potentially having Trump implicated in some kind of wide-ranging conspiracy that didn't happen.
I presume they would be misrepresenting what it is that I saw. Again, I don't know.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because I do believe that there are members of this committee that...
Gwendolyn Katz, thank you so very much to my super chat. Thank you, Gwendolyn. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. To my super chat, thank you, Gwendolyn. So kind of you. Your super chat support, everybody, really helps me do these live streams. Thank you, Gwendolyn. Greatly, greatly appreciated.
To deserve that counsel, because your specificity gives us an understanding of what we're reviewing. And I do believe that there are those who review some of the information that you have seen and represent it to the public absolutely incorrectly and misrepresent it. And I'd like to yield the remainder of my time to Mr. Gowdy.
So Congressman Turner did a great job here. He did a great job. It was kind of like he used honey, or he was, you get more with sugar than, I forgot the famous quote. Anyway, the point is, he was actually trying to get Brennan to just admit that he had seen something that pointed to criminal conduct. Brennan could not say that Trump committed any crime, because he didn't, because Brennan was making up everything. But let's continue.
Sorry, I was colluding with my friend from Florida. And I want to pick up where, I want to do this. The last time you and I talked, you had referred information to the Bureau. Am I right? What you had seen, you referred to the Bureau.
Okay.
What?
I don't know if that was the last thing.
Who is on the upper left-hand corner of your screen right there, ladies and gentlemen? Who is it? Who is it, ladies and gentlemen? In the chat, we have, 600 people or so. Who is on the upper left-hand side corner of the screen? Okay? Who is it? It is the current Federal Bureau of Investigation Director. Do you think that Brennan is going to be indicted? How about certainly? Almost certainly, or essentially he already is. But let's continue. This is very interesting. You have Kash Patel right behind Trey Gowdy. And they knew this was years back, but they knew that he was lying from the get-go. There were so many loyalists. I mean, it took Trump 10 years to wrestle control away from the United States government, of the U.S. government, from liberal Democrats and the small number of never-Trump Republicans who were doing everything possible to set up and frame people, to lie to the American people, to spread information that misinforms, lies, deceit. They did so through media, willing participants in journalism and in media, journalists who were actively spreading stories that were false because they were being fed lies by government agents or government employees or government officials to create stories and narratives, not to tell the truth.
Thing that we talked about, but I'll grant you that we talked about that. Yes.
One of the last.
Yes.
It wasn't a trick question. One of the last things you referred to the Bureau, what you saw. Is that fair?
Yes.
Did you also refer to Director Clapper?
Not everything that was shared with the Bureau was shared with Director Clapper.
And why would that be?
Because on counterintelligence.
Because we don't want Clapper to testify, or spill the beans that we made up everything, or we made up this document or that document.
Matters dealing with U.S. personal information of a very sensitive nature. The Office of the DNI and the DNI does not have that type of operational responsibility. And what we try to do is to make sure that there is as little exposure of that information as possible. I would keep General Clapper informed about the nature of my engagements, but the materials that were shared with the Bureau would not have been shared with the DNI.
Do you know if the Bureau opened a matter? Well, first of all, when was that? With as much.
Gee, why would he not share his information or intelligence with the Director of National Intelligence? Maybe because the whole thing was completely fabricated. And Clapper was in on it also, so that's a very bizarre that's very bizarre. Maybe he didn't want Clapper to know how much of it was fabricated from Central Intelligence. Who knows? The whole thing was a lie. You'd have to be a complete imbecile to believe any of it. But anyway, let's continue.
Much specificity as you can give us. When did you refer that information to the Bureau?
Would you accept last year as the answer? It was during the summertime, but even previous, there are ongoing sharing of information with the Bureau, and so it was over the course of the year.
All right. In conclusion, because I'm out of time, sometime in the summer, you shared the information with Director Comey at the Bureau.
Sometime in the summer, there was information that the CIA had that was shared with the Bureau, but it wasn't the only period of time where such information was shared with the Bureau.
Good enough. Thanks.
Jimmy Yos back. Mr. Swalwell, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director. Since you passed that information to the FBI Director, have you reviewed the FBI's development of that evidence or any other evidence?
I am unaware of what the Bureau has done with that information, and I have no knowledge of anything even that the agency has done since January.
Thank you, Congressman Swalwell. Perjury, So the greatest perjury traps take place also when Democrats are trying to help Brennan. So they're like, Director Brennan, have you spoken to Comey and the Federal Bureau of Investigation? And we know he did, and we know he knew exactly what was going on with the dossier and was setting up and framing Trump, and he just perjured himself. Oopsie. We know that from Tulsi Gabbard's memos. They all conspired. Oh, well, you just perjured yourself right now.
January 20th.
Are you aware of what the Bureau has briefed this committee with respect to evidence of collusion?
I watched Jim Comey's hearing and his comments, and I've gone through his transcript, so I'm aware of it, yes.
Are you aware of what the FBI has briefed this committee in a classified setting with respect to evidence of collusion?
No, I'm not. Totally not.
Director, May 10th of this year produced an unsettling image inside the Oval Office. President Trump standing and laughing with Russia's Ambassador Kislyak and Foreign Minister Lavrov. It's been further reported that President Trump shared highly sensitive code word information with Russia, putting at risk U.S. lives and jeopardizing sources.
So this is all conjecture, gossip, or hearsay. There's no evidence Trump did any of that. We do know there's categorical evidence that there was SAP intel, Special Access Program intelligence, on Hillary Clinton's servers that were private servers that even James Comey himself said, yeah, the whole world probably hacked into. James Comey himself stated the servers were hacked into. You'd have to be a complete and utter imbecile to think that Special Access Program and classified data on servers wouldn't be obtained illegally by other adversarial countries. But Congressman Swalwell here is making a big deal about hearsay or gossip pertaining to what journalists who despise Trump found out from an unnamed source.
And methods. Director, are the Russians worthy of receiving such information in the manner alleged?
In the manner alleged. Game, set, match. Everything that Democrats ever had against Trump was an allegation. When you look at Hunter's laptop, there's no allegation. The bribery and graft is actually in the laptop. That's why we couldn't talk about it. That's why people lost their security clearance. When you look at Clinton's servers, there's actually classified data there. So Democrats can't type an email without a complete fiasco. They're the ones with servers and laptops and foundations and donations and uranium deals, not Trump. But let's continue.
I believe it's important for the U.S. Intelligence to provide to any of our foreign partners any information related to terrorist threats to foreign countries or their citizens. And that's why I authorized the provision of classified information numerous times to the Russians that I believe saved Russian lives. As I mentioned, there is an appropriate manner.
Brennan, do you know who commissioned the Steele dossier?
I don't.
And perjury. And he committed perjury right there. He knew. He knew. He was the director of the Central Intelligence Agency. How do you not know, as the director of the largest spy agency in the universe, well, maybe the NSA is, but how do you not know that Hillary Clinton paid, along with the DNC, paid a foreign operative to create the Steele dossier, which is a bunch of nonsense, basically toilet paper with what you would put on toilet paper, complete fabricated, contrived, absurd fantasy, very likely the daily activities of most Democrats in Congress, and only purchased to destroy Trump's campaign, no other reason. How do you not know that? How do you not know that? Anyway, let's continue.
Do you know if the FBI paid for any portion of the Steele dossier?
I don't know. I know that they're
perjury. He knew that they were being, the sources actually were being paid, or there was a subsource receiving the FBI paid money to try to see if the dossier was accurate, which of course was a waste of taxpayer money, from what I remember.
There are press reports related to that, but I don't know. I have no firsthand knowledge of that.
Do you know whether any of the underlying allegations made in the Steele dossier were ever tested, probed, examined, cross-examined, whether the sources were examined for reliability, credibility?
I know that there were efforts made by the Bureau to try to understand whether or not any of the information in that was valid, but I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it.
Do you know if the Bureau ever relied on the Steele dossier as part of any court filings, applications, petitions, pleadings?
I have no awareness.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No.
Why not?
Wrong. Perjury. Within the ODNI report, Brennan was a part of pushing the Steele dossier within the United States government. So that's within the declassified documents from Tulsi Gabbard. The dossier was, imagine, Democrats would never allow Republicans to act in that manner. Could you imagine Trump and Rudy Giuliani purchasing a dossier that said Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were in a Moscow hotel room? It would never happen. They would, Axios, the New York Times, the Washington Post, they would win Pulitzer Prizes trying to eviscerate a document literally purchased to disparage their political candidates. But with them, oh my God, I think it was, who was it? One of the publications spent years trying to prove the dossier right. And they viewed it as, BuzzFeed published it as raw intelligence, BuzzFeed published it knowing that it was completely fabricated, almost certainly.
Because we didn't. It wasn't part of the corpus of intelligence information that we had. It was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done.
Perjury! We just know from Tulsi Gabbard's declassified documents, the dossier was definitely used to push investigations.
It was not.
All right, this is my last line of question. I hope I have waited sufficiently long enough to ask you about leaks to not inflame the anger of our friends in the media who think Republicans are hyper-focused on it, so we'll just do it last. Some of your colleagues have testified that our surveillance programs are critical, vital, indispensable to our national security. Do you agree with their assessment?
Speaking generally, yes, some of those programs are absolutely essential and vital to our national security.
Do you agree that there is at least a tacit agreement between the American people and their government that they will allow us certain power, certain freedoms in exchange for safeguarding the privacy of the information collected?
I think there is certainly an expectation that there would be a protection of privacy as the government carries out its responsibilities, yes.
And you and I discussed some of those privacy protections even within the intelligence community as it relates to U.S. persons. And you've been very clear this morning. In fact, I've noted the times you've said U.S. persons. You could have inserted a name, but you did not. You had the discipline to say U.S. person. And that discipline is practiced throughout the intelligence community unless and until there is a request to unmask that U.S. person's name, correct?
I would like to think that discipline is still exercised even if a request to unmask a name is made.
All right. So we protect U.S. persons even within those like yourself and Director Pompeo and Admiral Rogers and Director Comey and the people that we trust with awesome powers. We still impose some restrictions on them and that they have to request an unmasking. There has to be, I assume, a justification. You can't just wake up in the morning and say, hey, I feel like knowing who participated in X, Y, and Z. There has to be justification, right?
Yes.
All right. So how do we get from that to names being on the front pages of certain major U.S. newspapers?
It's an excellent question.
What would be an equally excellent answer?
That's an excellent question. We'll leave it at that. Very good, Congressman Gowdy, you're learning. And the lesson is over. Like, what? What are you talking about? You have to answer a question. Good question. Now let's continue. Like, no, you have to answer. Now he's like, oh, you mean the unmasking of Trump officials? How do I get out of this one?
That somebody violated their oath to protect classified information and violated that oath and shared that information in an unauthorized fashion with members of the media.
Well, my friend from Washington, and he is my friend, I was impressed not only with his eloquence, but the conviction with which he just spoke. But I've got other colleagues, not from Washington, that tend to minimize the nature of leaks as if there is somehow a weighing and a balancing that needs to take place between how interesting we may find the underlying information, how interesting we may find the underlying names. I have seen attempts, unfortunately, by members of this very body to mitigate and explain away and minimize what it does to the surveillance programs to have leaks of classified information. So I will finish with this. I believe there's some surveillance programs that are up for reauthorization. What would you say to the American people as names are unmasked on the last day that people are in office and classified information appears on the front pages of major U.S. newspapers? How would you tell your constituents, let's reauthorize this program again, despite the fact that we have abuses? How help us make that argument when we go home?
Mr. Gowdy, you and your colleagues here are going to have to make that argument based on the merits of the program and the importance of it to our national security, as well as trying to send a reassuring message to them that if there have been any abuses of the accesses.
So that wasn't actually a very good question towards the end, because it gave Brennan a way out. Hey, actually, that's on you, not me. Maybe you should think of that, Gowdy, not me. Anyway, he lied about 30 different times in the past half an hour of this live stream. Now you're going to hear Comey. This is why he'll lose. I mean, if he gets acquitted, which is a possibility, it'll be interesting because there's also obstruction of justice, which is a huge curveball. The issue at hand is that Comey authorized a leak, according to McCabe. He didn't tell McCabe to leak. He authorized the leak. So check this out.
And we'll get there. Somehow we'll get there. Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Returning to Mr. Comey. Mr. Comey, you testified earlier today that you have concerns whenever the FBI, the way that the FBI handled the Russia investigation, the surveillance of the Trump campaign, the Carter Page FISA application, the Michael Flynn investigation, was that handled in a competent and honest way?
First, Senator Cruz, there was no, to my knowledge, surveillance of the Trump campaign. I think the overall investigation.
That's perjury right there, but let's continue.
Of the Russian interference and whether Americans were associated with it was conducted in an honest, competent, independent way. That
okay.
doesn't minimize.
So, Mr. Comey, you're saying it's competent and honest. I assume you've read the Horowitz Inspector General report, which found.
Okay, the Inspector General report was completely flawed because the Inspector General was not given all the information, declassified information that Tulsi Gabbard just declassified and other information that even Tulsi Gabbard didn't declassify. Furthermore, the Durham probe was wonderful in terms of compiling evidence, but John Durham was not given all the declassified documents, and he was not given whistleblower testimony. And so he wasn't, a lot of these initial probes were not conducted with all of the available evidence. Okay, and even then they made Comey and others and Brennan look really bad. But imagine if they had all the information at their disposal, which the investigators did not have the information at their disposal. That's number one. Number two, he used a dossier purchased by Clinton. All of this was fabricated and set up. They literally purchased a lie. The Steele dossier was a lie that was purchased. But let's continue.
17 significant errors or omissions in the Carter Page FISA application. So in your view, 17 mistakes lying to the court is competent and honest?
Well, I've read the report. I don't believe he concluded there were lies to the court, but there are significant and important failings in the way in which the Carter Page FISA was prepared and renewed.
All right, Mr. Comey, let's go directly to lies. The Inspector General report concluded that Mr. Klein-Smith, an attorney who worked for you in the FBI, deliberately altered an email. He had emailed the CIA to ask if Carter Page was a source. The CIA came back and said, yes, he was a source. And Mr. Klein-Smith, your lawyer, altered that email to add the words, not a source, to make the email say precisely the opposite of what the CIA said. And that fraudulent document was then used as a basis for a fraudulent submission to the FISA court. You believe that is honest and competent, Mr. Comey?
I don't believe you've offered an accurate summary of the Horowitz's findings.
Oh, what a master at deflection. He was talking about Klein-Smith, the attorney that lied and literally fabricated a document to deceive a judge. And then, of course, Comey says, I don't believe you, are summarizing the Horowitz report correctly. That's exactly what Klein-Smith did. He was charged with that. But again, see, you'll get, in a couple of minutes, you'll hear Comey. Here, where is it? Here, let's just get to it.
A counterintelligence investigation from 2009 to 2011. And I will read some of what the investigation was. The primary subsource approached two individuals who were about to enter the Obama administration and indicated that if, quote, the two individuals at the table did get a job in the government and had access to classified information and wanted to make a little extra money, the primary subsource knew some people to whom they could speak, is trying to recruit spies against the U.S. government. You have a Russian agent that is the basis for an FBI investigation, and the FBI is the one who had investigated them. Your testimony is you didn't know. Did it occur to you to ask? Did you ask any questions or do any due diligence on this at all?
I don't remember anything about the facts that have been revealed recently about the subsource. And as I said earlier, I think that cuts both ways, but I don't know how the people running the investigation thought about it.
I don't know if Comey realizes that people with a functioning brain cell know that he's lying. I don't think he cares at all. He's speaking to a certain part of the United States of America, a certain part of the world. He's speaking to people who are completely delusional, who have no concept of, because within politics, there are certain people who are wonderful human beings, beautiful human beings, great individuals, great Americans. But when it comes to Trump, they have no concept of right or wrong. They just don't like Trump, and they will accept anything. And so he's speaking to people who are only delusional when it comes to Trump. And these people could be wonderful, amazing human beings. But I'm wondering if even those people, all of humanity knows that he's lying or lying by omission. And it's interesting. He was the most powerful man in America. James Comey was the most powerful man in America for about 1 year. With the Clinton email probe, writing the Comey memo, and then trying to set up and frame Trump, he was the most powerful man in America. Now, he's still doing the great acting job. Oh, I'm not afraid, and stand up to Trump. It's like, but everybody knows that he despised Trump. The seashells with the 8647, that's a blatant lie. Nobody walks by seashells that are 8647. Who's going to spend the time to put seashells together in the form of 8647? God forbid. And this was about on the 1-year anniversary of Butler, Pennsylvania. How irresponsible can you be? But it's like, I'm just wondering, does he understand that most of humanity knows he's lying? And does he care? I don't think he cares. And he's a creature of bureaucracy. So he was the most powerful man. I think he still thinks he might still be one of the more powerful individuals in the world. But this indictment has nothing. It's the conspiracy statutes that Trump is going after, not just obstruction of justice and lying to Congress. But let's continue.
Well, you didn't tell the FISA court that either, and I suspect the FISA court would have had a very different assessment if you had told them that the basis for your application was what you were being told from a suspected Russian asset. All right, let's shift to another topic. On May 3rd, 2017, in this committee, Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters related?
So this is it. Gwendolyn, thank you again. Gwendolyn Katz, thank you so very, very much, Gwendolyn. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where defenders of James Comey say, well, he didn't commit a crime. It's like, no, he did right here. You can't simply say that just refer to my testimony years back. That he was trying, right now, Comey is trying to circumvent a perjury trap, and he got himself into a perjury trap. That's why he was indicted. Then, I mean, I love Andrew McCarthy on Fox News, but there is a case, and he knows a lot more about the law than I do, but there is a case, because Andrew McCabe did not say, the entire Andrew McCabe defense was not that, oh, Comey had no knowledge. It was that Comey authorized Andrew McCabe to leak the information. He allowed Andrew McCabe to leak the information to the Wall Street Journal. That was where the crime takes place. He lied about it under oath.
Have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal and that you were directly aware of it and that you directly authorized it. Now, what Mr. McCabe is saying and what you testified to this committee cannot both be true. One or the other is false. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
So your testimony is you've never authorized anyone to leak. And Mr. McCabe, if he says contrary, is not telling the truth. Is that correct?
Again, I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
Mine is the same today as it was 50 years ago, which is the same as it was 50 years prior, and so you'll have to refer back 1,000 years ago. Oh, I circumvented perjury by being as vague and ambiguous as possible. No, you didn't. You got indicted for perjury. Now, he might get acquitted because it's a D.C. court, or I'm sorry, Virginia, and it would be a jury that's liberal or, aligned with the Democratic Party, or in terms of leanings, Democratic Party leaning jury or court or judge, but he committed perjury. He tried to deceive Ted Cruz and Congress by not addressing the actual question. His intent was to be as ambiguous and as broad and vague as possible to circumvent a perjury trap, because his testimony is the exact opposite of his subordinate, Andrew McCabe. Andrew McCabe said that Comey authorized a leak. In fact, Comey even stated on CNN, I think to Jake Tapper, he was either Jake Tapper or Wolf Blitzer, I forgot, that he could testify against McCabe. So if they get McCabe to testify against Comey, it's game over. But let's continue.
All right, I'm going to make a final point because my time. You didn't tell the FISA court that either, and I source in news reporting.
So let's listen to this again.
In this committee, Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal and that you were directly aware of it and that you directly authorized it. Now, what Mr. McCabe is saying and what you testified to this committee cannot both be true. One or the other is false. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
So your testimony is you.
So he would have been better served by simply answering the question again, maybe with more nuance. But again, there's so many lies. It's only a matter of time before there's a perjury trap. So he now his testimony, if the way the prosecution is going to go, his testimony is the testimony he gave in 2017, which is the exact opposite of what Andrew McCabe said. So who's telling the truth? Well, Andrew McCabe leaked information to the Wall Street Journal. Now, it said that he did so for self-serving, for purposes that were self-serving. Okay, because he was linked to the Clintons and Democrats. But his entire reputation has been tarnished in part because Comey stated that he did not authorize. The issue is authorization. It's not a matter of telling. So I love Andrew McCarthy at Fox, and of course all the liberal publications are making a huge deal. Oh, Fox News analyst said there's no case, but there is a case. And you hear it right now from Ted Cruz. It's about authorization and knowledge. Comey says he doesn't know, he'd never authorized, and he didn't know about the leak. McCabe said that he authorized and knew about the leak. There's a case there. Someone's lying under oath.
You've never authorized anyone to leak. And Mr. McCabe, if he says contrary, is not telling the truth. Is that correct?
Again, I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
All right, I'm going to make a final point because my time has expired.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's only a matter of time before essentially Brennan's indictment is almost certainly written already. They're running on statute of limitations, and it could be it's likely going to be lying to Congress, but it could be a whole bunch of other things pertaining to conspiracy statutes. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Really quickly, I'll be back tonight for an upload or live stream, but the indictment of Comey is not only about the 2 counts, obstruction and lying under oath. It is about conspiracy statutes, which really quickly you'll hear here, right here.
Director, one other question on this. Tulsi, as well as President Trump, used the word treason. Is there a statute of limitations on treason?
Well, Maria, what I would say is this, is there is no doubt in my mind that the people that we just talked about conspired. They conspired against President Trump. They conspired against the American people. And so I'll leave it to Pam Bondi and our Department of Justice, Kash Patel and our FBI to investigate the conspiracy to do what and what charges that they're capable of bringing. But again, I don't think statute of limitations are going to impact, because in a conspiracy, Maria, the statute of limitation doesn't start to run until the last act in furtherance of that conspiracy. And Maria, part of why this is so important is the people behind this are still furthering the conspiracy. They're refusing to admit or acknowledge what they did in 2016 and what they did in 2020 was wrong. And so I think that's why this is so important and why I'm excited about what the American people will see very shortly and what's to continue to come.
So all of these people know they're going to be indicted. They're essentially already indicted. Brennan is essentially already indicted.